Hey Simmers, the Paralives Developer Weekly chat for the 13th and 20th of December has been made public. I've fallen a little bit behind on this, so I've decided to put both weeks together in one video. So here we go. The community's choice question for the 13th of December was from Indy. Do you think making love, or however you decide to call it, will always have a chance of creating a pregnancy, or do you think you'd prefer to have them as separate options? And Anna responded, we'd like to have at least 2 different options, including one that never causes pregnancies, in order for the player to really control what they want to do. Although the other will not have a 100% chance to create pregnancy. Under the general questions, Christmas Int has asked, I was playing another game recently and noticed how a small handheld object, about the size of a small tablet, would disappear as the character got further from it, presumably to save system resources. Will Paralives do the same, or something similar, and can you describe the process in a little detail if so? And Jeremy responded, I'm not sure if the level of detail system will work the same way for handheld items, but it's basically a system baked in most game engines where you can define multiple 3D models for the same object, and depending on distance, the game uses one or another. You can also define use nothing at a certain distance too. This can be set to work using quality settings so that models change or disappear faster or slower, depending on computer performance. Draven Sable asked, how frequently are you planning on updating the game? Could be bug fixes, new furniture, or any sort of update once the game is in early access. And Alex has responded, we're not completely sure yet. I have to admit, I love that honesty there. We will probably have very frequent updates at first to fix the most important bugs that players will encounter, and then we will try our best to have new content updates as often as possible. Some bigger new features could take months to develop though, so it's possible that bigger updates would be spaced out in time. Jinta Claus has asked, in July, when you announced that Lena joined the team, you mentioned she would only be working with you until the end of 2024. I'm wondering if that's still the case, or if I dare hope that Lena will stay a bit longer. And Alex responded that they have recently decided to keep Lena as a permanent employee. So congrats to Lena on getting her permanent position. Moving down to further questions, Ben Chicken wants to know, what was everyone's favorite part about playtesting the live mode? And Alejandro responded, we're testing out how it feels for now, and it's really nice to take the live mode and make it fun. And Andre said that the best part of trying out the live mode was the difference in gameplay between pairs with different personalities. They added that there is so much more potential in that. Richard said, discovering that Redacted and discovering it gave me a precise goal for my playthrough, though I didn't get it in time. Leah said that they were so focused on grinding, they got a massive promotion in the game. Alice said that she had a lot of fun playtesting the live mode, and her goal was to make as much money and get promoted as quickly as possible so she could renovate. Charlotte said that as a QA tester, she got the chance to test a few things before everyone else did, and it was nice to see the new things that they had added and how it all came together. And Lena said that she was focused on gaining skills so she could get a better paying job in the game. I don't normally go through every single question in the Developer Weekly chat because a lot of it is just related to their own personal preferences in real life and not the game, and I want to concentrate on Paralives, on the questions that they answer about Paralives itself. But this one question is both personal and about the game, so I'm going to share it here with you all. And it's by Reindeer, who says, if you had to assign yourself one of the PAM vibes, what fits you the best? Alejandro responded with anxious and jester. Alex responded with serious and anxious. Gab, anxious and jester, same as Alejandro. Leah, overjoyed and anxious. Alice says peaceful. Charlotte responded anxious and energetic. And Lena says that she is also team anxious. Reindeer also asked which animal would be a dream of yours to add to Paralives as a pet or as wildlife, even if it's completely unrealistic. Gab responded, an alligator, Alejandro a penguin, Andre agrees with Gab and would love to see alligators and other Floridian-style animals in Paralives. Lee wants chickens. Alice wants sheep and turtles. Charlotte says any kind of bird will make her happy, but she would especially love to see owls in the game. And Lena responded with bears and wolves who would live in the forest. Moving to the live mode questions, Reindeer says, "You just showed us how having the vibe serious can affect gameplay by being able to zone into something and pause needs. Are you thinking about having the other vibes have unique gameplay buffs? It would be really cool for something like a charismatic vibe, having something that makes relationships with other people richer, or insert another clever example I'm not creative enough to think of right now." And Anna says, "I agree," and she continues to say that she thinks that most, if not all of the vibes will have unique gameplay buffs, because it will make them impactful in the identity of a character, and I am very happy to hear them say that. Indy wants to know, with work on live mode and various systems proceeding, any thoughts on how pregnancy will work and how it will impact the pair's life, such as maternity leave options, baby showers, etc. And Anna responds, "There's no thoughts that I'm able to share yet, sorry." So there are thoughts about how pregnancy will impact the pair's life, but they're not able to share it yet, which is perfectly fine and understandable. Indy's also asked, how is the cooking system in the game? And Jeremy responded that he thinks the cooking system at the moment is fairly functional, but not much more. And he goes on to say, you have a wide list of recipes, and ultimately the pair manages to cook them, but they really need to go over each of them and decide what makes them unique and what they want to do with the cooking system. And he says that there's still something missing in the cooking design, so they're going to have to get back to us on this one once they fully iron out the cooking system. Claire wants to know if we are going to get larger animals such as horses in addition to regular pets, perhaps also livestock like cows, pigs, chickens, etc. And if we're not going to get it for in early access or soon after full release, will it be in the cards for the future? Jeremy says, we have people on the team that would really love to have horses in the game, but since pets are not coming at early access launch, we have nothing concrete to share about them at the moment, only that we will certainly consider it. They're not saying yes, they're not saying no, it's a wait and see. Zinta Claus wants to know if something like looking forward to things in the game, such as a release of a game, movie, or music album, book series, movie adaptation, your paras being able to follow along with the development of those things, or different events, is planning to be included in Paralives and how it would be implemented if they were to put something like this in the game. Anna's responded with, I like the idea of having a release date for things and building up some sort of hype around it for paras who follow them. It's not something that is planned for now, and she says that I could see it being really interesting. She goes on to say that she would love it if we could build communities around movies or games, play and watch them as a group, and get excited. Also, events are definitely something that they want to implement, but it's too soon to give any details about it. Wow Thanks wants to know what the maximum number of paras that can live in one household is going to be. And also says, do you think that pets will contribute to the household limit or have their own limits separate from humans? And Jeremy has responded, we don't have a limit at the moment. Deciding on a limit feels like it would require us to be done figuring out 3 things. The performance cost of each character in a player's household, such as does the game lag if you control a certain number of paras. The balance issues stemming from having a really big number of people in your household. For example, can you just create a 10-para household that will autonomously become millionaires in 2 in-game days? And do they really want that? And the third thing is the user experience that they want to offer. Is it easy to pick together cards, traits, manage needs, wants, etc. for a lot of characters, and how many is just right? And he says, when we get there, we'll be able to answer, but at the moment, figuring out a limit is not really feasible. Draven Sable asks, how will the aging system work with traits? I'm imagining traits morphing into similar traits or being able to add on or build from existing traits starting from childhood and going into adulthood, so would love to hear what you have planned. And Anna responded, this is a really good question. We don't have a final answer for you yet, since we're still designing many parts of the aging gameplay. I agree, that is a really good question, and I would love to know the answer to that. And I am hoping that what Draven says in their question comes to fruition, because it would be really cool to be able to have traits like a motor skill trait morphing into a different trait as that sim gets older and builds upon it. Doman asks, since it's confirmed that rabbit holes will eventually be buildable, is it possible to explain a bit more how they're going to work? Is it a sign or a door that turns a rabbit hole unseeable from inside? Can you make a lot partially a rabbit hole? Example, have a front area that's a normal place to enter, but a back area that's a rabbit hole for paras employed at that venue. And Jeremy has answered, I cannot explain at the moment how it'll work because our world building tools will not be available at launch, and everything we have so far is very simple development tools. We check a box inside Unity that says this lot is a rabbit hole, and that's it. Paras will walk to the front door of the lot and disappear. But he does say there's still a lot more that we want to do on that front, but for the early access launch, it'll be good enough. Bin Chicken wants to know if animals will have height sliders so that you could make cats as big as Maine Coons, or mini horses or dogs from Chihuahua to Great Dane sized, with everything in between. Anna says, we don't know yet. We'll know more about pet customization during early access once we start working on them. It's not possible to make such decisions without first thinking about what it implies, and this kind of planning takes time. There's one build mode question, and that is by Tar Heel Girl, who asks, will schools have real building facades in the game like rabbit hole employment buildings? Also, I know college won't be in the game at launch, but could we use the mod tools to add a post-secondary building that gives para degrees that we can make necessary to get some jobs in the game? And Jeremy responded, our first town design isn't done yet, so it's hard to answer this question. If we want to have, for example, 8 different schools in the game, but we don't want to have 8 different buildings, paras might go to school by leaving the map. For the second part of the question, I think it would be possible. We might still need a few features for it to work, but I could see it being easily doable. So that's really cool to know. Then moving on to Paramaker questions, there are 2 questions. One is by Draven Sable, who says, will you allow full body freckles? And Sonia's responded, funny that you ask that. It's coming very soon. I am really looking forward to seeing that. Aki asks, what inspired the clothes that you guys made in the game? And Leah responded, we take our inspiration from so many sources. We tend to pick clothes that are going to help us portray specific parafolks, and therefore we usually have references on what mood we're looking for. We do a lot of scrolling on various clothing brand websites for all the basics that everyone has. Sonia and I also always looking for inspiration outside when we're meeting new people and are just walking in the street. Living in a big city is great to find new clothing ideas. Moving on to the December 20th Paralives Developer Weekly Chat. The community's choice question is by Amor Fatil, who asks, I know that houseboats are still a long way off, but I was wondering, what kind of houseboats are we talking about? Are we talking floating houses, or are we talking more like a house in or on a boat, or maybe both? And Alex responded, the goal would be to support both. When we start looking into this, we will look into what is possible, and we will be able to confirm then. And he says, I'd see myself building boats on platforms, on a hull, and a more complex yacht as well. Moving to the December 20th general questions, Calamity wants to know if the developers have had to change any models due to unforeseen issues, and if so, which ones? Alex responded, 3D models for furniture or clothing items? Yes, a lot. Sometimes it's because we want to improve the look a little, or make a piece of furniture resizable in the build node, so we need to tweak how the model is made to make sure it can resize while still looking good. And Tar Heel Girl wants to know, being able to travel between different maps is going to be something that the team will consider adding in the future once early access is done. They go on to say, I mean like being able to go from one town to another for vacation, for instance, after hitting a brief loading screen. And Jeremy responded, many ideas such as this one are indeed things that could be fun to do and are doable. I'm not sure what the amount of work and complexity would be, but we might try to do that. Moving over to the devs questions, Aki wants to know, what are your most memorable and proudest moments of working on Paralives? Richard responded, the terrain tools post was very cool to do, and I had so many questions to answer. Alejandro responded, I did so many things last year, but I had a lot of fun with the rework of the swatch system. Chloe's response was, I think I'm happiest with our post on disabilities and getting to create all these items and the favorite builds I got to create throughout the year. Leah says the new hairstyles, all the new builds, so much has been done. Charlotte's response is, making my first Patreon post was definitely a highlight. And she said that it's so fun answering questions from supporters and seeing reactions to the Paralives Shell Challenge that she did. Andre says that their proudest moments is a secret. Hopefully you'll get to know what it is soon. Other than that, making the Patreon post was super cool. Moving to the live mode questions, Tar Heel Girl asks, I have a question related to marriage and early access. I know that events aren't planned to be available with the launch, which probably means weddings won't be in there at the beginning as well. So how will paras get married? Will it just be a courthouse wedding where they disappear into a sort of government building at launch? Or will the option of marriage outside of pre-made para couples made in the Paramaker be locked initially? Anna responds, I can't confirm with 100% certainty, but it's more likely that paras will automatically get married when one proposes to the other, at least for early access launch. Tamilet wants to know, will you include any vibes or anything else that reflect neurodivergent traits? Anna responded, I don't know if any vibe will really specifically represent neurodivergence, but we do try to take inspiration from all kinds of personalities, including neurodivergent traits. Doman wants to know, since you said trying for a baby might not be a guarantee of conceiving, do you consider some infertility mechanism in game, or will everyone, apart from old paras, be able to have a baby? And Anna responded that infertility gameplay is not planned. And you should also be able to choose in the Paramaker whether your character can get pregnant or not at the adequate life stages. And that is really interesting to hear, by the way, because for those of you who play The Sims 4, you'll know that you can choose whether your sim can become pregnant or not, whether it's a sim that has the male frame or the female frame. And it's really nice to see that they're working that into, or something similar, into Paralives as well. Bin Chicken wants to know, how will holidays work in Paralives? Because not everyone celebrates Christmas, will there be a way to customize how and if certain paras spend holidays? And Jeremy has responded, I'm not sure if holidays are actually going to be in the game when we release early access, but I'm going to err and say probably not. So I have no information about this. Ben Chicken also asks, will paras have allergies and sensitivities to certain things that might make them prone to sneezing? And Anna says that it's not planned yet. Moving to the build mode questions, Tommylet wants to know, how close together will we be able to build lots? Will it be possible, for example, to build terraced housing or shops that share a wall between them? Jeremy has answered, townhouses should be doable. We've shown this in a previous Patreon post. Sharing a wall might be a bit difficult because it would require extra logic and code, so you can't destroy your house and the neighbors at the same time by destroying the wall, for instance, so this might come later on. Tammy that brings up how it's frustrating in other life simulation games that you can't get newspapers or furniture swatches to match, or at least to not clash. And wants to know, will Paralives have any standardization of materials across items so that there's one dark wood, one light wood, etc., so it's easy to match them together? And Chloe responds, we do have some standardization through the items we have. Unlike in The Sims, where items have custom textures, we have a bank of material textures that we use in our items. We spend a good amount of time tweaking the materials in our texture bank to make sure they look good in our world when paired together. These materials are used throughout all our items, so not one material will be unique in a negative standout way. For the colors, we have a color palette that we developed and use in-house when creating swatches. This is so whatever colors we use, they look good. The combination of these colors also looks good together, so in general you should have no issue mixing and matching. Colors through items are somewhat standardized depending on their materials and the collection they belong to. For instance, material standardization, we have a palette for woods. Usually when I have a prominent piece of wood on an item, I will go through the palette. You'll more often than not have an option with light wood, reddish wood, darker wood, etc. in those cases. For standardization by collections, if say I have a red chair in X collection, you will find that the same shade of red will come up again in the other furniture items from that same collection. All in all, there will be a good selection of swatches to choose from, and it won't be too overwhelming adding your own or changing the materials. That sounds awesome. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments below. Continuing on, we've got one more build mode question from Tar Heel Girl, who wants to know, will community lots functionality work based on predetermined lot types or the objects on the lot? For example, would a lot only function as a restaurant if a pre-selected lot type for restaurant were chosen, or would any lot with a kitchen, seating area, and host station work as a restaurant despite having no specific lot type? And Jeremy responds, for early access, because there won't be a way to edit the world, and the lots will be entirely designed by the developers, it will be very simple and there might just be a pre-selected lot type assigned to the lot. And the final question is about Paramaker by Amorphatil, who wants to know, with the yearly overviews, it's become clear that PAM assets are seemingly a lot more time consuming to make than build buy assets, and that made me really curious as to why. And Leah responded, all the assets in the Paramaker will have to be connected to the skeleton of the Parafolks to move with it. A fair amount of them require to have alternate versions. For example, hairstyles have 3 versions depending on the hats. Pants are divided in different parts depending on the shoes, and so on. This year, one of our big goals is to add a certain amount of new hairstyles for all hair types, and it is by far the most time-consuming task we have, so it got reflected in the amount of assets we were able to create. And that is it for the last 2 remaining Developer Weekly Chat questions from 2024. Please subscribe to the channel, and I will do my best to get these out in a timely manner. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.